All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another Tuesday Night Healing. It's our 13th episode. Tonight, we are going to be talking about alcoholism. I'm just going to wait for Stormy to join, and then we'll get started on that. Hope everybody's week's been good so far. Mine's been an absolute nightmare working 12 hours a day. I actually just got done with a 12-hour shift, so. Yeah. Hey,
Hey,
how's it going?
going good.
All right. So, let's get this chat underway. Tonight's topic is alcoholism, something I know quite a bit about. I've been around it my entire life. I also have alcoholic tendencies, if not defined as an alcoholic as well. Really just depends on who you're looking at, who's saying it. By definition, yes, I am. Not something I'm proud of, something I've been working at for a very long time. I've come leaps and bounds since then, which we will talk about tonight. But it's to be informative. It's not to encourage it or anything like that, because it does cause a lot of pain for other people and stuff, which, again, we will dive into. So what's the definition of an alcoholic? Well, it's a pattern of alcohol use that involves problems controlling your drinking. It's being preoccupied with alcohol or continuing to use alcohol, even when you know that it's causing problems. So this disorder also involves having to drink more just to get the same effect, or having, withdrawal symptoms when you're rapidly trying to decrease or stop drinking. So unhealthy alcohol consumption includes any alcohol use that puts your health or safety at risk and causes any other alcohol-related problems. It also includes binge drinking, which is a pattern of drinking where, a man has 5 or more drinks within 2 hours, or a female has at least 4 drinks within 2 hours. Binge drinking causes significant health and safety risks. I myself am a binge drinker. Always was a binge drinker. Usually what would happen is if I started drinking that day, basically I would be able to knock like probably 3 to 5 back. Mostly, I usually sit around 3 or 4 within the first hour. I'll get like a 12-pack of Coronas and I'll bang 3 or 4 out just in the first absolute hour. It just gets, my motor running as far as that goes. But again, it's not to promote this, it's just to talk about it. So, but that was my always thing. In the past, I was a big hard alcohol drinker. So my go-to initially was Stoli. Or first it started off as Smirnoff, then it went to Stoli, and then it went to Jack Daniels, which when we get to that part of this, I will explain all of that. And then eventually I stopped and I just went to beer, and I don't drink hard alcohol at all because, it's just a personality changer. And I didn't like that. And it took me to go through it so many times to realize how much of a personality changer it was. So how do you know if you're an alcoholic? Well, some of the signs would be being unable to limit your amount of alcohol that you drink, not being able to put a stop to it, be like, I'm only going to have a 6-pack tonight. Like, you just keep going and going and going. Another thing would be wanting to cut down on how much you drink or making unsuccessful attempts to do so. So, like I just said before, well, maybe I'll switch from hard alcohol to only drink beer. I mean, alcoholics say that. Normal people with not a drinking problem, they don't say that. So, spending a lot of time drinking, getting alcohol, or recovering from alcohol use. Feeling like a strong craving or urge to drink alcohol. Spend a lot of time doing that. A lot. If I drank on a Friday night, it would usually take me 2 days to fully recover to get my mind right. And sometimes it's even lasted 3. It just depended on how much I was drinking that night. And back in my heydays of drinking, I would miss work and stuff like that on Monday because I'd just be so hungover that I just couldn't get myself out of bed. I'd just be having, my biggest thing is panic attacks. Like you get that hangxiety, it's called, and it's like they're so overwhelming and they're just beating on you all day long, and it almost feels like you're going to die. But I mean, it's in your head, but it is a physical symptom as well, withdrawal, which again, we'll get into. Another thing is failing to fulfill major obligations with work, school, or home due to alcohol-related use. So if you're blowing off deadlines or calling out of work, or you're not taking care of your health, you're not doing your schoolwork, it's all things. Another thing would be continuing to drink alcohol even though it's causing physical, social, and work and relationship problems. Been there, done that through every single one of them. Another thing would be giving up or reducing social work or activities or hobbies just to use alcohol. So if you're used to doing hobbies or you're banging out of work to drink and stuff like that, that's a problem. Using alcohol in situations where it's not safe, i.e. like driving a car or swimming or, operating machinery and stuff like that. Like, you shouldn't be doing it, but you're doing it. And as for someone who has a DUI under his belt, it's another thing. And then another thing on here is developing a tolerance to alcohol, so you need more to feel its effect, because you're not feeling it with the same amount, which means you're probably drinking too much and too often. So it's something to consider. And the very last thing on there is experiencing withdrawal symptoms such as nausea, sweating, shaking when you don't drink, and then finding yourself having to drink to get rid of these symptoms. My biggest thing was hair of the dog. So the next morning or something like that, if I came off of a bender or something like that, you have a little bit of whatever you were drinking last night to kind of even yourself out, and it got rid of the shakes and stuff like that. And for a while, which again I'll get into soon, I was using clozapam to do it. But what I didn't realize was that the clozapam was actually making it a lot worse. So why do we do it? I mean, that's the big question. With all those horrible things I just named, why the hell will we continue to do it? Well, alcohol intoxication results in the amount of alcohol that's in your bloodstream. And, it increases with the more that you drink. So the higher the blood alcohol concentration is, the more likely you're going to have bad effects. Alcohol intoxication causes behavior problems and mental health changes. They may include inappropriate behavior or unstable moods, poor judgment, slurred speech, problems with attention or memory, and, poor coordination, obviously. You can also have periods called blackouts where you don't remember events. And if you have a very high blood alcohol level, it could lead to a coma, permanent brain damage, or even death. So everybody does it to get drunk. I mean, let's be realistic. People are using alcohol to get away from their problems, just to get drunk, to let loose a little bit. Like, my biggest thing was like, if I worked like a terrible week at work or something like that, like I would drink to kind of just like get out of that headspace and just forget. Another big thing to consider is with the BPD and stuff like that, I'm constantly in a state of overthinking and overworrying and stuff like that. And when I drank, I wouldn't care about anything. I wouldn't worry about anything. It was almost like shutting off that part of my brain. And even though in my head, I knew I was going to feel like crap the next day, it was worth it to me to have that like 8 hours of just not being in my own head, not caring about anything, and just letting loose. Like, my biggest thing was to go drink, listen to music, do karaoke, stuff like that, just kind of like get it out there, because it gave me a break from all the other chaos that was going on in my life or in my head. Stormy, did you want to add anything before I keep going?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that definitely my biggest problem was drinking at a young age and continuing to drink, well into my 20s, into my 30s. A lot of my friendships and my relationships were pretty much around alcohol. Like, that was the thing that all of us had in common, or all of us did together. So, yeah, and then having family that, drank pretty much most of their lives as well didn't help either, because, you're around it, you start doing it, and yeah, there comes a time where I basically outgrew it, I guess you could say. I got tired of doing it. It just wasn't any fun anymore. Of course, having a child, did help with that as well. But I was doing it in my 30s, and even into my 40s, I started back up because of stress and things like that. So it's tough, and it's a good subject to talk about, because I know the majority of people have either had the issue, or family members or loved ones that have went through it, because it's a big thing. So I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't have it yourself, it's more than likely, like Stormy said, somebody who does have that problem. So, it's good to bring light to it, kind of understand it. And, even like doing the research and stuff like that, like I learned a lot about it, and, we'll get to that as well. And it's just, it's all knowing. And the more you know is the better you'll be. So what causes it? What causes alcoholism? Well, genetic or psychological or social or environmental factors can all impact how drinking alcohol affects your body and behavior. So theories suggest that for certain people, drinking has a different and stronger impact that can lead to alcohol use disorder. Over time, drinking too much alcohol may change the normal function of the areas of your brain associated with experiencing of pleasure, judgment, and the ability to exercise control over that behavior. And this may result in craving alcohol to try to restore good feelings or reduce negative ones. So now I wanted to go into like my own history a little bit to kind of give you an example of why this subject's important to me. So when I grew up and stuff like that, like my dad drank and, it was a pretty normal thing that on the weekends and stuff, he had a bar built in like his basement where all his friends would come over and stuff and they would all drink. So, I was always around it like my entire life. And my first drink that I had was like first like real drink, not like taking a sip or something like that, was I think when I was I want to say 16. It was the first time I gotten drunk. I actually was out with a friend. I worked at his pig farm, and it was weird because I was just getting into being a bad kid at that time. And what wound up happening was that when I was working with him, he told me one of his buddies was going to become like coming over to his house and stuff, and he was going to bring vodka. And I mean, I never like gotten drunk or anything like that. Like I tried beer before, but like it really wasn't my thing. I never understood how people drank it at the time. But he came over and, it was that day he asked me if I wanted to try chewing tobacco. I'd never done anything before. So, stupid, naive me, I tried it. I threw it in. I got like a huge buzz. I was like out of my mind. It felt so weird. I almost felt like I was going to throw up, but like it was kind of exciting. Like, whoa, like this is a whole different experience. And then we went and hung out with him and like we were making drinks. Like he bought like 2 really, really expensive bottles of vodka. I couldn't tell you what the name of it was, but he spent something like $180 on these 2 bottles. It was like really like classy stuff. So we were drinking and we were mixing it with like other juice like that, but it wasn't strong enough that you could really taste it. So like you're pounding it back real quick. And, for a first time getting drunk, we wound up in his bedroom. Like we went up into his room and we were both puking side by side out the window, and like his dad came in and realized like it was our first time really getting hammered, so they're like taking pictures of us and stuff. And then it was also that first night that I tried my first cigarette, so I just wham bam hit all 3 just in one shot, like in a single day. And I really didn't like smoking. I'd been around that my entire life, so I didn't really like think I was gonna do it. And then it was only like maybe like 2 or 3 months later I actually started smoking, and then started smoking ever since. So I chewed for a while and stuff, and then, obviously alcohol. But like I wasn't huge into alcohol in the beginning. I would do it from time to time. Like I would drink, like if I was at a party and we were playing beer pong or something like that. That was one thing, like to do it, but I wasn't finding myself like just sitting there and just drinking. Not at least not then. And what wound up happening was that when I went to the Navy, that's when I started getting into drinking because we were all underage and we would go off base because it was a dry base, and, somebody would buy us alcohol and you just like take a bottle of Captain Morgan, stick it in a brown bag and just walk around. Like when I was stationed in Great Lakes there, or when I was stationed in California, I wasn't 21 when I first moved there. So, we were underage drinking as well. And hotel parties were like the big thing. Everybody would go there and underage drink, and, it was whatever. But that's when it started happening. And then when I was in the Navy, I actually wound up getting married to a girl I had dated all throughout high school. She moved out to California with me, wound up getting married, and I was making stupid money. I mean, we were living in the hood in Lemon Grove, right outside San Diego over by La Mesa. And, when we were living there, it was just like, it was so cheap at the time. I think we were spending like $800 on rent or something like that. And then, with my cell phone bill and car payment, I think our total bill was like $1,300 maybe. And then we would spend maybe $300 on food, but I was making $4,000 a month. So I just was like stupid money, and I would just spend it. Like I always wanted like a giant liquor cabinet. I was just packing that thing every weekend. I remember walking into Grove Street Liquors, which were literally a shopping cart. And I was just, oh, this bottle looks cool. Just throwing them in. It didn't matter whether I was drinking it or not. And at that time, I mean, my big thing that I had gotten myself into was Pop-Off. Like I started drinking I got used to drinking cheap stuff. So, I mean, Pop-Off's about as cheap as they come. but I liked it after a while because I got so used to it. So that's what I mostly stuck with, was the pop off. And there's a couple pictures on my Facebook and stuff of me when I'm like significantly younger, real thin and stuff, and I'm holding the bottle of pop off in my hand. And I was mostly doing that. And then what wound up happening was that we were going through a split up because we got married in November of 2011, and she had moved back to New Jersey by Easter of the following year. We weren't getting along and stuff like that. It just wasn't working. And she went back home and I stayed. So it was around that time that I actually started drinking more. So, with that, it turned into more of a thing. Like I was drinking every weekend. And then as the process of me getting out and stuff like that, they had realized, because I had tremendous scarring on my arm and stuff from when I was cutting when I was younger, it was one of those things that they realized. So they postponed me getting out like 2 months, but they had told me it was only going to be a week. So I got rid of my apartment. I had my car shipped back and stuff. So I didn't really have anywhere to go. And what wound up happening is that because I was going to mental health so much during the week, I wasn't really accountable for anything. So like I kind of like slipped through the cracks. I wasn't attached to anything. Like I'd show up for roll call in the morning and then kind of just do the mental health stuff and then disappear for most of the day and just show back up at like 4 p.m. or whatever it was to do, another roll call. But I would just find myself being in the hotel on base and stuff like that and just drinking all day. I mean, it turned into, at that point, I would get like a bottle of Smirnoff and I would just sit there and drink it all day long. That was my go-to. I would get a bottle of Smirnoff and 2 Green Monsters, and I would just sit there drinking that, watching TV, listening to music, whatever the case may be. Because I was so miserable at that time. I was also finding out about me having BPD. I was going through what was to be a divorce. Like I was living in California, away from home. I had a lot of issues going on in the Navy too with other people. So it was like a lot going on at that time. And then when I finally did get out, as weird as it sounds, it's not like I saw combat or anything. I mean, I had a lot of fucked up situations when I was in the Navy, but never like combat or anything. So when I got out, I almost feel like I didn't get out. I felt like I was dreaming or something like that. And I was collecting unemployment at the time, when I got out in September, and I collected unemployment until I got a job at the post office in June of the following year. So I didn't have anything to do at that point in time. So what I was doing is I would wake up in the morning, I'd drive all the way to town. It was about a 15-minute ride. I'd pick up because I got so sick of Smirnoff because I was drinking it so much that even to this day, like if I smell it, I feel sick. And I would drive and I'd go pick up a bottle of Stoli. I always saw Stoli everywhere. I was like, let me give this a shot. And I had my first taste of it and it was amazing. So I started drinking Stoli all the time. And like my big drink was like Stoli, raspberry, and Sprite. Or I would just take a bottle of Stoli and 2 Green Monsters, and that would be the thing. But at this point in time, you're talking 2012, I was killing a bottle of Stoli a day. 2 Green Monsters and a bottle of Stoli. Wake up the next morning, get in my car, go get another one. And just like, it kept going. And it went on for months. And then my dad started to see that like there was a problem. And, he suggested to me to apply to the post office. And at the same time, like I was looking into getting school. So I applied at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and then that was that. So then it started getting better. But I remember that was the first time I felt withdrawals because I really stopped doing it every day. And then I went through like my skin felt like it was crawling. I had the shakes for like a day or two. I couldn't sleep. Like I just felt nauseous. But I kicked it. It lasted like 4 or 5 days, but it went away and it scared the crap out of me. Like, you can't be drinking like that no more. I wish I would say that that's what really did it. But, at that time, that's what I thought. But I moved in with an old friend. We actually rented a house actually down the street from where I live right now. And it was like a frat house. It started out with just be me and him. And it was our first place, like, out on our own. I mean, I lived on my own in California, but, it was our first place together on our own. So we're out there, and then all of a sudden we were moving another roommate and another roommate and another roommate. And at one point there was 5 guys like living in this place. And it was just a party every day. I mean, there was so many times that we had like 150 people deep, and the cops came and gave out tickets for disturbing the peace. Like it was just wild. We had a full DJ setup, and there was just so much drinking and stuff going on. And I actually met what used to be my best friend at the time. I met him during that time period, and me and him would literally get a jug handle of pop off and kill it between the two of us in a single night. Like no problem. But that's when it all started, because that was in 2013. I woke up one morning and I had the worst panic attack of my life. And I never had them prior to that. And I felt like I was having a heart attack. It scared the ever-loving shit out of me. And I didn't know what was going on. And ever since then, they always stuck. So, I mean, even 10 years later, if I drink and stuff like that, it's still there the next day. It's not nearly as intense because I'm not drinking like that, but it is still there. And it's annoying. It really is, because it's like I'm in my head and I'm just sitting there. I'm like it's in your head. It's stopped. Like, it's stopped. But it's not. Like, my heart is beating out of my chest. Like, I feel physically ill. So, then it evolved into, at that point, I started dating my child's mom. And, I was still reeling from a lot of the things that went wrong in my life. And then, dating her again, I was happy, but I wasn't like, I don't know, there's just something missing. And then she got pregnant and I was very happy, but at the same time, I was scared shitless about being a dad. So, it was tough for me at that point to accept that, to let the party life go, because me and her like partied all the time. I mean, that was our thing. That's how I met her. That's what our relationship was like. And then the party had to stop. And I always felt bad about it because I didn't think at the time, how she felt when I kept partying and she couldn't because she was pregnant. And I think that's what started to create the initial rift between us, is because I wasn't ready to like grow up and I was like nervous about what the next chapter of life was. And then, once my daughter was born and stuff like that, I took like a huge halt on it, but I didn't stop drinking. It turned into like an every other weekend thing. And then by this time I had graduated to Jack Daniels. And when me and my ex would drink, like, cause she began drinking again, she would drink tequila and then like I would kill a bottle of Jack Daniels in a single sitting. You figure I'd start drinking at 5 p.m., stop drinking about 1, and I would kill an entire bottle. So it was a lot. I mean, I was doing it a lot. I was feeling so sick. And then she was the one that suggested to me to take clozapam, or Klonopins, whatever you want to call it, to take that to kind of like remedy the way I was feeling next morning. And at first it worked great. It made the panic go away. And I was like, wow, I found a solution to keep me drinking and stuff like that. But in the long run, it just created more anxiety because all it did was postpone it. So maybe that morning I didn't feel like it, but by that afternoon, I'm going to feel like it, and it's going to come twice as hard because of that. So, eventually me and her split, and then, it turned into something else. And then, hi, Alana. For a little while after that, it kept going, but then it kind of just like faded off. Then I completely, once that was over and stuff, I said, I'm not going to have hard alcohol ever again. It's just not about it. And no more clozapam, none of that. And I just stopped. And then, I kind of just stuck it out with just like beer and stuff. And then that was kind of like my happy balance with the entire situation. So, that's how it evolved over the years. And then, more recently and stuff like that, like I don't do it nearly at all, like maybe like once a month now, if I have nothing going on or whatever, but it's not like how it used to be. And I know like I'm going against exactly what I'm describing when it comes to being an alcoholic and stuff like that. But I mean, it's the truth of the matter. I found that being sick all the time and like doing that, and then like eventually being alone and doing it, like it just kind of like dawned on me. It was like you got to stop. Like, this is too much. So, and that's where that came from. So how do you get help for it? I'm sure everybody that knows about alcoholism and stuff like that can sit there and tell you AA. And I said we were going to dive into AA. I did say that last time when I was setting this up and stuff. So let's do it. What is AA? AA is Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a global peer-led mutual aid fellowship started in the U.S. and dedicated to the abstinence-based recovery from alcoholism through spirituality inclined 12-step program. Everyone's heard of the 12 steps. Besides stressing anonymity, AA's 12 traditions established as a non-professional, non-denominational, apolitical, and unaffiliated. Unpolitical and unaffiliated. In 2020, AA estimated its worldwide membership to be over 2 million people, with 75% of those people being in the U.S. or Canada. That's a lot. And you would think like with European countries and stuff like that, like they would probably be more prevalent there because like drinking is more established, but I guess not. Yes, America is just taking that. So if you've never been to AA, what are the 12 steps? Let's go over them. Step 1, you have to admit your life has become unmanageable. So what does that mean? Well, you have to recognize that you're powerless, to deal with your addiction on your own. It has taken over your life and you can no longer have control over anything. So basically the first step is admitting you're powerless. You can't control this. It's an addiction. You need it. You can't control it. You're out of control. Then you go on to step 2. You have to accept that you need God to become sober. So because you have no control over your life, you need to accept and need God to step in to help you become sober, because without him, you cannot succeed. Now, when they say it's non-denominational, it's not saying like God, Jesus is Father. It could be anything. I mean, it bases to all religions, but it also is to nature and stuff too. Like maybe you don't believe in like God itself. Like maybe you believe in just a higher power. Whatever your higher power is what they're referring to. It's not trying to convert you to Christianity or anything like that. Like it works with all different types of religions. So it really just depends on what you believe in. It's finding your higher power. It's what you look up to. Step 3, you decide to turn over your life to God. So now that you've accepted that you need him to help you, you consciously made the decision to turn your life over to him. So it's admitting you have a problem, admitting that you need like a higher power to step in and take control because you can't do it on your own, and then finally turning your life over to that higher power and just giving in. Step 4 is honestly taking stock of your own life. So you take a long, hard, honest look at your life. What have you done wrong? What mistakes have you made? Like you really start to, compartmentalize like what you did wrong and all the problems that you created with your addiction. Step 5 would be admit the wrongs to yourself, God, and other people. So you're going to fully admit and take responsibility for the mistakes and wrongs you've made. You're going to share these wrongs with others and openly admit the mistakes that you made. You got to be honest. I mean, that's the big thing. And, I'll get into when I'm done reading the steps why I personally couldn't get into AA, but I adopted concepts of it to help in my own life. But, you have to admit there's a problem. You have to be able to talk about it. And it's all about being honest. If you're just going to lie, you're just going to keep repeating the same bad behavior. So you really have to just come clean and say yeah, I messed up. And I realized in life, why do people lie? People lie because they're afraid of what's going to happen if they tell the truth. But when you let go of that fear and you're no longer afraid, there's no reason for you to lie anymore. There's just not. And you can be honest because you accept the consequences, and people are going to make mistakes in their life. It's just normal. So when you can actually come clean and be honest about what you're doing, people will actually tend to respect you more than sitting there making up some bullshit story that you're eventually going to get called out on anyway, and you're just going to look like a jackass. It's better just to be upfront and honest and just to the point. And the people that really care about you will stick around. I mean, the people that don't, it is what it is. But there's so many people in the world, you just, strangers are just friends you haven't met yet. So there's always time to make more. Step 6. So be ready to have God remove your character defects. So open yourself up to change. Now that you admit your wrongs, be prepared to change those behaviors that led to the mistakes in the first place. If you're not willing to rearrange your life and stop doing the things that were causing you so many problems, you're going to continue to keep doing the problems. Step 7, ask God to remove your shortcomings. So you pray to God to remove those defects and shortcomings so that you can change your life. So now you're ready to change them. And again, you're relying so much on a higher power to help you. You're surrendering yourself to have those things changed. So step 8, you write down everyone you've harmed during your addictions and be ready to make amends. So you're going to identify those people that you hurt with your addiction, and depending on how long you were an addict, the list could be super long. But you try to think back when you're taking your inventory and stuff like that, and you make notes I messed this person over, I did this, and this, and you make a list. It helps too if you write down the things that you did, so that way when you're going to make amends, you can apologize for the things that you did wrong to them. But that's when step 9 comes in, and that's make amends to those you've harmed. So, there's a caveat when it comes to this step. And basically what that is if you know you're reaching out to someone that you hurt and it's going to upset them further, then you don't do it. It's not about bringing up the past and stuff like that. It's trying to make amends for your wrongdoings. But if you know that by bringing these horrible things up to this person is going to trigger them and mess with their life, it's better just to leave it be. So, this step isn't to make you feel better. It's to sincerely apologize to people for the pain that you caused. Don't cause additional pain just to make amends to them. Some things are just better left unsaid. I mean, it's just as simple as that. When you get to step 10, you're going to continue to honestly look at your actions and admit when you're wrong. So you're going to keep self-monitoring to determine if you're doing the right thing. And if you're not, you have to admit it and be willing to make change. It's all about honesty. A lot of it has to do with being honest and admitting that, you're powerless and you're asking for help. Step 11 is to pray to God for direction or power to follow these directions. So if you pray for direction from God, to continue to live a sober life. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Is being sober. So you just continue to keep practicing and being honest and asking for help. And, every day is just, it's one day at a time. That's what they say. It's like the big thing, one day at a time. Keep coming back. Like, you just keep doing it. And then the final step, the step 12, is to put into practice what you've learned and carry the message of faith and recovery to other addicts. So you're taking everything that you learned in all these things and helping other people, because it's supposed to be like a brotherhood or a sisterhood or whatever, or unity or whatever you want to call it. It's everybody working together to get away from the horrible things that you're doing in life and help other people not do those same horrible things. So, the final step is to continue to practice the 12 steps throughout the rest of your life, because it's a lifelong thing. Addiction doesn't end just because you completed the program, or some sort of like treatment. It's something that you're going to battle for the rest of your life if you really are an addict. So you got to continue to remain sober. That's the biggest thing. You also need to share the message of sobriety and faith with others who are battling the addiction. Let them know that they can live a clean life if they dedicate themselves to sobriety and God. Ken, now, I'll throw in my opinion about this. I believe AA is a good thing. I believe a lot of people find solace in it and can do great things. Personally, I am religious. I was raised Catholic and stuff like that. I do believe in God. But the things I couldn't get past is like sitting there and relying on an entity to walk in and stop you from drinking. You make you drink. God doesn't make you drink. You make you drink. You get up and buy that alcohol. You sit there and say, I'm not going to go to work tomorrow. I'm going to get drunk tonight. You're making that conscientious choice. And I feel like it has to do a lot with society too, where people are willing to put the blame on other people for their own actions. You have to take personal responsibility. You fuck up. You're the one that picks up that bottle and drinks. You're an alcoholic and you keep doing it. You're to blame. You can't sit there and curse God and say that, he ain't helping you. It's you. You're doing it. So I never cared for those steps with it and stuff like that. It's not that I don't believe in God, because I do, but, to sit there and think that there's going to be some sort of divine intervention to get me to stop drinking is just not taking accountability for any of the fucked up things I'm doing. So I use some of the steps as far as being honest and stuff like that. I try to be honest every day. I try to do one kind thing every day, and I try to be respectful of other people's feelings and stuff like that. Sometimes it is difficult, but I do my best. And I know, comparing myself to where I was years ago, it's vastly different. I'm more confident in myself. I'm happier with my life. And, I'm being more honest and upfront, especially about my needs and wants, and, trying to basically be empathetic. So, there's that. And then there's the other thing to it. Some people, like, there was a girl I knew and stuff like that, and like her worst night was like my daily life. And then she just ran to AA and just went wild with it and stuff like that. And it was like, I felt like it was more of an attention grab than actually having a problem. I mean, she'd only been a drinker for like 2 months out of her life, where I was going on, like 15 years. Again, everybody's different. Everybody has their own opinions on stuff like that. But I felt it was more of let me go to a group setting and talk about my worst night and have people listen to me and whatnot. So I thought it was more of an attention thing. And there are a lot of people that go and use that. They use these outlets, these group therapies and stuff like that, to make themselves feel heard and get attention. It's not to say that there are people that don't strive from this, because I do believe it, and I've met lots of people who are alcoholics and stuff that have been tremendously successful by using this program. It really just depends on what's going to tailor to you. Like I said, mine was just coming to terms with what I was doing wrong and taking responsibility for my actions. I had no one to blame but myself. I was the only one making myself do this. And then it kicks in that there's the secret 13th step. Now, what's the 13th step? It's a term that AA members use to approach new members for dates. So what they'll do is, you'll find that in these meetings and stuff like that, that they'll seek out these fresh faces and stuff like that to use them for encounters or dates or whatever the case may be, because they're fresh. I mean, they're just ready to relapse. So people will use that to basically as like a shark pool for hookups or whatever the case may be, whatever it is they're looking for. I mean, there's been things with like NA and stuff like that where I've heard horror stories where people will go in there specifically to sell drugs to these people because they know that they're chipping and they're ready to relapse. And people will take full advantage of that because, unfortunately, that's the world we live in. That's just this harsh reality of the situation. So they suggest when you're doing AA and stuff like that you find a sponsor of the same gender. And, that way there is no inner conflict of, sexual attraction or anything like that. So, everybody finds their own thing. Some people find solace with the church. Some people find solace with AA or NA or Al-Anon, like whatever it is that you find. Therapy. There's so many different avenues when it comes to that. It really just depends on what you're looking for and what's best for you. You have anything to add to that, Stormy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, for me, I never thought about going to AA or that I had an issue. But again, I did because, I mean, it was coming to a point where I was drinking almost every day. I was drinking for sure every weekend. Then I had stopped for a while after I had my daughter. And then I picked it back up and I was drinking every night again. But my thing was definitely a higher power. My thing was also just knowing family members, friends that were alcoholics, really bad alcoholics, and how it affected their lives. And, I just didn't want to go down that path. And I just pretty much cold turkey quit. And so I was able to do that because of myself and my belief in I'm better off not drinking. So, yeah, it's definitely, it depends on the person. You definitely need a support system if you're not able to do it on your own. There's always somebody you can reach out to if you need help.
It's true. I mean, there's so many different outlets you could use. There's just a plentiful amount. And again, you have to want to get sober in order for it to be successful. Now, I'll tell a story. It's not my own story, but, I've said in many of my videos and stuff like that, and I know Stormy could attest to it. Like, my biggest role model is Justin Furstenfeld from Blue October. And he got sober. He's been sober for a long, long time. And, like, when he was going through his recovery and stuff like that, like, he couldn't figure out, what it was, like, that higher power. Like, it's not that he didn't believe in God, but, like, he couldn't figure it out. And one day, I guess he was out back and he was smoking a cigarette. And while he was out there, he was like just begging for like God to step into his life and stuff. And he saw this bee and it kept flying into like this like Raid can. And he just kept thinking to himself, he's like, how stupid are you? Like, you keep flying into the same thing that's going to kill you. And it was like that moment dawned on him. That was like, that's the same thing I'm doing in life. Like, I keep taking drugs and drinking and stuff like that, knowing full well it's going to kill me. And then, how stupid am I that I'm literally running into the thing that's going to inevitably kill me? And that's what got him to come to terms. And, he's been sober since. And it's a great thing. It's a great thing to have and stuff like that. And, him especially, he got me through some, like, he was one of the, not the only thing, but one of the biggest things to help me get through my dark times when it came to custody court and stuff. So, it was a real honor actually to see him a couple months back, face to face and like talk to him and stuff. And it was really cool. And, Stormy helped set that up twice too, through live chat, talking to him. And it was pretty incredible to, see somebody you idolize so much and have that moment with them. So, another story that goes with that, my alcohol addiction had gotten so bad at one point that, I actually, there's so many stories. I mean, I could sit here all night and just go story for story. But like when I was in California and stuff, it was like really bad to the point where like I fell asleep on like the sidewalk and I had to find somebody actually came and like picked me up and like took me home and stuff like that because like I was just knocked out. And there's been so many times like that, puking on myself or breaking shit or breaking fingers. There's just been so many different things. And it's unfortunate. And I'm not going to sit there and say it was all bad, because if it was bad, why did I keep doing it? But there was a lot of good times with it too. But then I started relying on it too much, especially with like hookups and stuff like that. Like I would be kind of awkward in the moment and stuff, but it gave me the confidence that I was lacking because growing up, I was a very quiet kid and I was very to myself. I didn't actually become outspoken and stuff like that until, I kind of came to terms with my life and stuff and like kind of stopped giving a shit about what people thought about me. and just started living life for me. And that's what made me more outgoing and like personable and stuff. Because prior to that, I was that kid that was just in the corner, just like super quiet, wouldn't say anything. So there was a lot of things that it helped me with in life, but there was even more things that it like fucked up. So now we're going to talk about the real bad stuff. Withdrawals. So that can occur when alcohol use has been heavy and prolonged and has stopped or greatly reduced. It can occur within several hours, up to 5 days later. Signs and symptoms include sweating, a rapid heartbeat, hand tremors, problem sleeping, nausea, vomiting, hallucinations, restlessness, agitation, anxiety, and occasionally even seizures. So symptoms can be severe enough to impair your ability to function at work or even social situations. It can also kill you. That's another thing. It can actually die when you're going through, recovery and stuff. They have to closely monitor you, especially if you are a massive alcoholic, because the withdrawals can actually kill you. You hear about those stories, like when people are coming off of heroin and stuff too, like it can kill you, or even benzos. I didn't know that when I was doing my research. I found out that even benzo withdrawal can kill you. I thought it was simply just heroin and alcohol, but I was incorrect. So what are some of the risk factors of being an alcoholic? So steady drinking over time or drinking too much on a regular basis for an extended period, or even binge drinking on a regular basis, can lead to alcohol-related problems such as alcoholism. When you start at an early age, people who begin drinking, especially binge drinking at an early age, are a higher risk for, becoming an alcoholic. So, your family history also plays a big part in it. The risk of alcohol use disorder is high for people who have a parent or other close relative who has problems with alcohol. This may be influenced by genetics as well. So, like, my dad's dad was a big drinker. My dad's a big drinker. I was a big drinker. I'm trying to break that generational mold by, not influencing or showing my daughter that it's okay to be like that. Like, I want her to have a life where you kind of break that cycle. And I mean that's a big thing to me. So that's why I don't do it around her whatsoever. That's like always been a big thing for me. I was like, no, that's not happening. Because, in my household growing up, it wasn't given or anything like that. It wasn't influenced, but it also wasn't frowned upon. So it was kind of like, if you were drinking or something like that, it wasn't the greatest thing. It's not like it was going to be celebrated, but it also wasn't the worst thing. So, depression and other mental health problems. It's common for people with mental health disorders such as anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, borderline. They all seem to have problems with alcohol or other substances. As someone who has borderline, I can absolutely vouch for that. If you have a history of trauma, like people with emotional trauma or other types of trauma, have a huge risk of becoming an alcoholic because, like I said before, it drowns out all that pain, all those thoughts in your head where you're constantly worrying about like what's going on in life and things you can't control. That peace for just momentarily, even if it's just a couple hours, is just like, it's so euphoric to have that and not have to worry about anything when all you do all day long is worry about everything. If you have any type of surgery, some research shows that, surgery can increase the risk of developing it or even relapsing after recovery. People use it as a painkiller. I mean, everyone can sit there and attest that when you get really banged up, you feel invincible. You're not hurting. It's not anything like that. I mean, maybe the next morning, but in the moment, you feel invincible. You're like the Hulk. Social and cultural factors, especially. Having friends or close partner who drinks regularly could increase your risk to drink regularly. The glamorous way of drinking is sometimes portrayed in the media, can also send a message that it's okay to get that drunk. For young people, the influence of parents, peers, and other role models can also impact that risk. Numbs everything for sure. Yes, it certainly does. It can impact on your health pretty badly, which we'll also get into. Drinking too much alcohol on a single occasion over time can cause health problems like liver disease. A big thing with that is like heavy drinkers. It creates like fat in the liver and the inflammation of the liver. And over time, heavy drinking can cause irreversible destruction, like scarring of the liver, like cirrhosis. It can also lead to digestive problems, like heavy drinking can result in inflammation of the stomach lining, as well as the stomach or esophagus. You can get ulcers. It can interfere with your body's ability to get enough vitamin B's and other nutrients. Heavy drinking too can damage your pancreas or lead to inflammation of the pancreas, pancreatitis. It can cause heart problems for sure. Excessive drinking can lead to high blood pressure and increases your risk of an enlarged heart failure, or even stroke. Even a single binge drinking can cause serious irregular heartbeats, like arrhythmia, or arterial fibrillation. Diabetes complications. Alcohol interferes with the release of glucose from your liver and can increase the risk of low blood sugar, like hypoglycemia. It's dangerous if you have diabetes and you're already taking insulin or some sort of diabetic medication to lower your blood sugar. Mixing that with alcohol is definitely not a good idea. Issues with sexual function. So heavy drinking can cause men to have difficulty maintaining, and women, it can interrupt menstrual periods. I can attest to that. When I got with my last, for the first 2 months, or a month or two, I was having issues with that because I had been drinking such an extreme amount. And it's shameful and stuff like that, but it's just a reality of the situation. And obviously when I stopped drinking, things went back to normal, but it was bad. It was really bad. And I had no idea what that was going on. Eye problems. Over time, heavy drinking can cause involuntary rapid eye movement, as well as weakness or paralysis in your eye muscles due to deficiency of B1. A thiamine deficiency can result in other brain changes, such as irreversible dementia, if it's not properly treated. You hear about that a lot with massive alcoholics, dementia. It's just a terrible thing, especially if you're somebody who blacks out all the time. You're kind of just gearing up for that later in life. It can cause birth defects. Alcohol use during pregnancy can cause miscarriages. It can also cause fetal alcohol syndrome disorders, and that can cause the child to be born with physical or developmental problems that could last them an entire lifetime. So if you're selfishly drinking while you're pregnant, you are more than likely going to hurt your child. So you got to think about that. Wait, is it really worth it? It could cause bone damage. Alcohol may interfere with making new bone. Bone loss can lead to thinning bones, like osteoporosis. It's an increased risk of fractures as well. Alcohol can also damage bone marrow, which makes your blood cells. And this can cause a low platelet count, which can result in bruising or bleeding. And then neurological complications. Excessive drinking can affect your nervous system, causing numbness and pain in your hands and feet, disordered thinking, dementia, and short-term memory loss. So, there's a lot of horrible things that go along with that. A lot. And there's actually 3 more. Weakened immune system. Excessive alcohol use can make it harder for your body to resist disease, increasing your risk for various illnesses, especially pneumonia. It also gives you an increased risk of cancer. Long-term excessive alcohol use has been linked to a higher risk of many, many cancers, including mouth, throat, liver, esophagus, colon, and breast. Even moderate drinking can increase the risk of breast cancer. So that's another taken into consideration. And the last thing is medication and alcohol interactions. Some medications interact with alcohol, increasing its toxic effects. Drinking while taking medications can either increase or decrease their effectiveness and make them dangerous. So what I've learned is if I would drink and I took clozapam, it would increase it. But if I drank and I took antibiotics, it would decrease it, and it would take me longer to get better. So it really depends. A lot of people will mix alcohol and stuff like that to boost that. It's just, if you're an addict, you're an addict. You play on other things. So, Stormy says that I can attest to cancer and alcohol is a good point to bring up. Yes. Stormy is a cancer survivor as well. I'll let you jump in here. That's a perfect time.
I was just going to say that, the time that I did end up getting cancer, was a time that I was drinking a lot. And then basically at that time, my doctor was like, you really need to stop drinking, smoking. You need to eat pretty much just the greens and very little protein and no sugar. So I had to rearrange my whole lifestyle. And I basically did that, and I beat it because I did give up all that stuff, and it was hard to. After, you're used to eating a certain way, drinking every day, drinking every weekend, while you're young, and then you're not able to do that. But it definitely does help your body physically and mentally when you do stop. And it's basically your body starts healing itself from the damage that it's caused.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I noticed it too, especially more recently, because I haven't really been drinking. Like, I noticed the massive changes and stuff like that. I'm more motivated, more, on top of things, I'm thinking clearer, it's just better. It is. It's not to say, I don't enjoy, like I said, every once in a while, like the occasional drink or something like that, but like it's not nearly like what it was falling on the ground, blacking out, anything like that. Like it's not, like I just realized that I had a problem and like it just needed to stop. I didn't want to be a bad example. I wanted to set the example. I wanted to set the bar high. So I needed to stop doing that. I needed to take personal ownership for the fuck ups in my life and actually like be a man about it. I mean, I know that's like taboo to say, but it's the truth. So when it comes to recovery, as Stormy just brought up, what happens when you stop drinking? So between 2 and 12 hours, the onset of withdrawal symptoms may come. You may get tremors. You start like throwing up or excessive sweating or relentlessness, anxiety, all those things. It could possibly happen if you're a big drinker. Then when you hit the 12 to 24 hours, the withdrawal symptoms will continue. The alcohol cravings, reduced energy. You'll feel low and depressed. Sleep is likely to be messed up. Insomnia was a massive thing with me. Then when you hit the 12 to 72 hours, this is the danger period where the most severe withdrawal symptoms, like raised heart rate, increased blood pressure, and seizures will really kick in. That's when you're going to see it the most. 48 to 72 hours for most people, that's the point where the withdrawal symptoms begin to reduce and they become, more manageable. Then after 3 to 7 days, withdrawal symptoms will, on a whole, stop for most people. In a few cases, the symptoms will worsen and could develop into an emergency thing, which could involve disorientation, confusion, or profuse sweating. This is why heavy drinkers should only stop drinking under medical supervision because, again, we were talking about how the withdrawals can kill you. After about a week, your sleep patterns are likely to improve, though it can take like up to a month for some people, but you should get better at that point. 1 to 2 weeks. Between the 1 to 2 week mark is the people usually like are done with the detox period and they're on the road to recovery. When you hit that 2 week mark, you're looking at a little bit of weight loss because you're moving the alcoholic calories. Those whose livers have been badly damaged by drinking and became fatty, they'll slowly start to show signs of recovery. When you hit the 3 to 4 weeks, your blood pressure is going to reduce to healthier levels if drinking was the thing that was causing it to increase. When you hit the 1 month, your skin's going to start to look better. You're going to start to have less acne and be clearer, the bags under your eyes, the dried out skin, because alcohol essentially dries your skin. You're going to start to have your normal skin start to show again. After 3 months, you're going to have way more energy and a general sense of just feeling better. You're going to have that better health feeling. Like you're just going to be more alert, more awake, just more things going on. And then after you hit the 1 year mark, a few people will find some degree of sense of low energy and, anxiety, sleeping troubles, or alcohol cravings at the beginning of withdrawal, that it continues longer than usual, but usually at that 1 year mark, that's when most people say that they found solace. I mean, again, it's a lifelong thing, addiction, but at that point, that's when most people feel the most comfortable to say that I will no longer drink again. Again, it's one day at a time. You're constantly going to be battling like cravings and stuff, but usually if you can make it a year, that's when people sit there and have the most success rate to keep it going. Withdrawals seem to happen within the first few weeks to first few months. That's when most people go back on it. But it's with anything. You get the new people that go in the gym in January and they're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to work out. And after like a month or so, they're just not really interested anymore. So, it really just depends. But if you really are serious about being sober, then you'll push it and you'll keep going and you'll make it happen. It's just one of those things. You have to want it and you have to be serious about it. So the last part, to bring up some fun facts about alcohol. So 6 minutes is how long it takes for the brain to start reacting to alcohol itself. 6 minutes. 48% of people worldwide over the age of 15 claim that they've never even drank alcohol. I thought that was like alarming. I was like, so half of the world has drank, the other half hasn't. 18 liters is how much alcohol that the Russians consume each year. 67.5% is the amount of alcohol content in the strongest beer in the entire world. 0.914 was the highest ever recorded blood alcohol content, which is more than twice the legal lethal limit. 0.9. Like, that is insane. Like, I thought I was bad when I got pulled over and I was a 0.21. Like, that, like, wow. You can't drink alcohol in British Parliament unless you're a chancellor delivering the annual budget statement. Okay. 1 in 5 top 100 country music songs refer to alcohol. It's everywhere. I mean, as an Italian and stuff like that, we even use it for food. So I mean, it literally is everywhere. This red wines have a higher alcohol content than white wine. I didn't know that. I thought this one was interesting, and it kind of goes to the AA thing. Did you know the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill W., demanded alcohol during his final days on Earth? See, it just goes to show you that it never really leaves you. And even the guy who founded the most successful treatment for alcoholism demanded it in his last few days. Moonshine accounts for around 30% of the world's alcohol drinking. If you've never had moonshine, that is like an absolutely intense thing right there. Did you know that spraying your clothes with vodka can actually eliminate odors? But you got to be careful not to overdo it, or it's just going to stain your clothes. But it can actually eliminate odors. Who would have thought? And milkshakes actually were originally contained with alcohol. Fear of an empty glass has a scientific name. It's Senosiliacobia. I don't think I pronounced that right, but I gave it a shot. Vodka is the world's most popular alcohol with approximately 5 billion liters consumed per year. You will need around 600 grapes to make a single bottle of red wine. And there are approximately 49 million bubbles in a bottle of champagne. There's the last two. There's a 90 psi of pressure in a bottle of champagne, which is 3 times the pressure of a car tire. Which makes you, I guess, understand, like, when you pop those things off, how much damage they can actually do. I mean, you hear those horror stories of shooting somebody's eye out or breaking something. Like, it makes sense. Then the last thing is a gin and tonic will glow under a UV light because the tonic contains quinines, which are UV light reactive. Never noticed that. So I guess if you're at the club, you know what I mean? You got the UV lights and stuff going, get a gin and tonic and you'll glow. The things the things you learn. I mean, that's what's so good about these Tuesday night healings, because not only I'm obviously learning because I'm doing the research about them. I mean, they are things that I've dealt with in my own life, but I'm also doing the research. But yeah, the more you know, like, it's funny. But that is what I have on alcoholism. Stormy, you have anything to add to that?
No, I think I said everything I was going to say on it.
Yeah, so, in closing, you got to want it. You got to want to be sober. You got to want to make a change in life. And I'm getting more knowledge in my egg. Yes, Professor Egghead. Yes. But, that's what it's about. It's about helping each other, like I always say in all our things and stuff, and just, being there for each other. It's learning things, and, that's really what it's about. And just to be able to help somebody, get over whatever's going on in their life and stuff, because like we always say, you can always reach out to myself or Stormy, if you're looking for more additional information, because again, maybe I learned something from you, maybe you learned something from me. It's about helping each other. So, but you got to want it. You got to want to make a change. You got to want to do the right thing. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're always going to ultimately keep creating the same cycle over and over again, because what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting things to change. But if you don't go and make the change, then you're never going to get better. You have to want it. You have to really want to dig deep and make it happen. Everybody's life is worth something, at the end of the day. And we have such a short time on this earth and stuff. Why waste it? Enjoy the things in life. Like, obviously there's trauma and stuff, that you have to get over, but if you don't go out and seek healthy alternatives, you're ultimately just going to let the trauma win and you're going to bury yourself with it. And that's not what it's about. It's not. You have to find something. There's more to life. You just got to dig deep and do it. So with that being said, we do these Tuesday night healings every Tuesday, and then on Thursdays we usually do the book review. But because Thanksgiving is Thursday, we actually are going to do the book review tomorrow. So if you don't know what that's about and you're your first time joining us and stuff like that, I'm indie author Nick Polisi. I wrote Souls of Paradise and also Paradise Reborn. Now, we went through the Souls of Paradise. If you haven't got caught up with it, you can certainly jump on our YouTube channel, The Paradise Collection. There's a link to it in my TikTok. You could check it out and hear the Easter eggs and stuff about the book. Now, I decided with the second book that I was going to read it to you guys as a special treat and stuff. So, tomorrow we're actually going to do that live chat. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, my buddy who lives with me is actually, because there's like 7 different people talking in this chapter, he's actually going to jump on and read with us, almost like a little skit going on. So it's not like me trying to distinguish 7 different people talking, because the way I write, it's more like a play. So it'd be easier if I had more people to help with that. So I think he's going to help with that burden and give me a hand with doing that. So you'll get a little show tomorrow if you tune in. So, maybe Stormy as well can jump in, pick a character, do a little reading. We can get a whole thing going here. But tomorrow's going to be the day that we actually go ahead and do that. So I'm very excited about that. We are jumping on chapter 5. It's called The Remnants of Things Past. I do have a bunch of good Easter eggs, and Stormy could do that. Awesome. We got a lot of good Easter eggs to talk about, and we're going to see 2 familiar faces from the first book again. They're going to pop back into the story. So if you read the first book, it's something to look forward to. As far as an update, I did say I was going to give you guys a teaser from the next book, which will be done tomorrow at the conclusion of reading chapter 5. So if you want to get that in, come check it out, watch the video with us. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you guys the first chapter of the 3rd book. If you haven't read the 2nd book, I would suggest not listening to that part of it, which is why I'll do it at the end, because there's a lot of spoilers and it'll ruin the end of that. So I don't know if I'll read the whole chapter, but I think I'll give you the gist of it before we really get into the spoiler part of it, just to, see what's going on. So, something like that. I still got to weigh it out, but we'll figure it out. And then after that, I posted the schedule of what we were going to be doing as far as our Tuesday night healings, which is on my TikTok, is pinned to the top of my profile. The next video we're going to be doing next Tuesday is about trauma in general. We're always looking for people to join in and talk with us and stuff like that. If there's any stories you want to share or, comment while this thing is going on, it's a great way to learn. It's a great way to teach other people. It's a great way to be there for each other, so we always invite people to join in and be a part of that healing. So, if this is your first time watching us or you're a returning person, thank you so much for tuning in and sticking with us. It's a big subject, like Stormy said before. It's something that affects somebody in some sort of life, whether you know somebody or it's you personally, a family member, whatever the case may be. Everybody knows somebody that has that problem. So it's good to air it out, learn about it, recognize it, and try to resolve it. So I will see you guys tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time for our 5th chapter reading of Paradise Reborn. And if you haven't gotten the book yet, you should definitely check it out, because the 3rd book's going to be coming out in spring, summer. It really depends on how harsh this winter is as far as work goes. But I did write another 11 pages today, so I'm more than halfway done with chapter 6. Should be done when I go back to work next week. So something else to look forward to. But if you haven't checked it out, you can certainly get it on Amazon. It's 99 cents for the Kindle version. It's a little bit more expensive for the hardcover and softcover, just because printing costs. And I don't really have any control over that. But you can always check it out, the Kindle version, for 99 cents. And just read along with us or get a head start or whatever the case may be. Or you can get the free version by listening to me read it every Thursday night. Something to check out. So a lot of good reviews. If you have any doubts, check out the reviews on Amazon. A lot of people were very happy with it. And that's that. And I will see you guys tomorrow for that chapter reading. Have a good night.